And September 12th, 2024. Thank you for your patience with us trying to figure out our some technical difficulties. I would like to welcome everybody to the public meeting, my fellow councillors, the media, and anyone who is joining us in person and electronically, well, maybe not electronically, but watching this for this committee of the whole meeting. I'm Sam Branderhorst. I'm AFA Ward councillor, and I'll be your host today. So today's agenda lists all of the items before committee for consideration. The recommended motions on today's agenda are shown in boldface. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. This meeting is being recorded currently, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The recordings from this meeting will be up on the county's website and can be viewed by selecting live streamed meetings on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Under agenda item 6, I will be asking for comments from the audience. Today, there are no comments from the audience pre-registered. If anyone would like to speak at this section of the agenda that are present at this meeting, you are welcome to do so. Members of the public who wish to provide comments at future meetings can do so by contacting the clerk at pecounty.on.ca to register. A reminder that if you are participating, your name will be included in the committee minutes and form part of the public record and posted on the county's website. I want to remind everyone that we may differ in opinions, but it is important to remain respectful of each other. For those in attendance, please refrain from clapping in the council chambers, as it does not add to the discussion, as it is a contravention of our procedural bylaw. Any motions made at this meeting are not final until the council meeting of September 24th, 2024, at which time the council may approve, amend, defer, or otherwise change the motion made by this committee. In the event of a fire, please use the applicable 2 fire exits in Shire Hall or wherever you are tuning in from. For those in Shire, please mute and limit the use of cell phones. Now, can I please have a motion to confirm the agenda, and Madam Clerk?
Through the chair to all of committee, could I please just get a motion to confirm how we are proceeding? So the motion would be as follows: that notwithstanding Appendix 2 of the procedural bylaw pertaining to live streaming, the September 12th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting proceed, be recorded, and then uploaded to the YouTube channel as soon as feasible.
Councillor Pennell, did you want to move that motion? Saw your hand going up. So move the motion. Awesome. And Councillor McNaughton? Oh, okay, cool. Let's move on. No, all in favor, right? We have to. Cool, that carries. So now a motion to confirm the agenda of the committee of the whole meeting as amended. Nope, we're just moving on. Okay. Councillor Princeton, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Princeton Harrison, that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting on September 12th, 2024 be confirmed. All in favor?
Cool, that carries. And any disclosure of pecuniary interest today and the general nature thereof? Any? I'm seeing none. Cool, we're moving on. And we're also have an announcement from Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. A brief announcement that next week, September 15th to the 22nd, is a National Legion Week, and it's intended to underscore the Legion's commitment to veterans and to welcome new members into our halls. And it's an education tool for local branches to highlight what they do in the community and reinforces the important role branches play in our shared mission to serve and support veterans, as well as to contribute to the well-being of so many communities across the country. And if you have a look at the Facebook or the local Legion's websites for various activities that will be occurring next week.
That sounds great. Any other announcements before I move on? Nope. Okay. So now we will be moving on to section 4 presentations. We have Brandy Hodge, the executive director from the United Way Hastings and Prince Edward, on behalf of the coalition of 6 other local organizations: Quinte Health, Belleville, Quinte West Community Health Center, Public Health, HPE, Hastings County, Loyalist College in Hastings, Quinte Paramedics, to address committee regarding the community plan to provide integrated addictions care. I would just like to remind you, you have 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will shave some time off your agenda. I won't take 20 minutes. Hoping that we can get the PowerPoint up. Thank you. So as said already, my name is Brandy Hodge. I'm the Executive Director at United Way Hastings and Prince Edward, but I'm here actually representing a resource table that is a collaborative of many organizations that have worked together to develop this community continuum of care. My co-chair, Lisa Alley, is the CEO of Canadian Mental Health Association, Hastings Prince Edward, and she was unable to join me today, but sends her regrets. I just hit the up arrow. Down. There we go. So we are here today to seek your support for a comprehensive action plan that was developed to respond to the ongoing crisis of opioid addiction and overdose across our region. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a very brief summary and overview of some of the activities that have happened to date in response to that crisis. I'll share some information about a proposal that was submitted to the government, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, and I'll be happy to answer those that I can. Before we start, it is really important to acknowledge the fact that this has been a collaborative effort of leadership from across our whole region, which has included really intensive engagement from, as mentioned before, Canadian Mental Health Association, Hastings Prince Edward. Also, the Indigenous interprofessional care team from Mohawks Bay of Quinte, Quinte Health, Hastings Quinte Paramedic Services, Belleville Quinte West Community Health Center, Hastings County, Loyalist College, United Way Hastings Prince Edward, and Prince Edward Public Health. Before we get to the details of the plan, let's review how we got here. In 2023, there was a dramatic increases in overdoses and drug poisonings. And the Hastings Quinte paramedics responded to 90 calls for drug poisonings in just 1 week, which marks a 900% spike from the usual average of 5 to 10 cases or calls per week. In the last 10 years, there have been 14 attempts by regional service providers to secure funding for mental health and addictions in Hastings and Prince Edward area, and none of those proposals have been funded. In November of 2023, there was a surge in overdoses in our region that sparked the initiation of roundtables across our region. And then, as we all know, in February of 2024, a state of emergency was declared by Mayor Neil Ellis in the neighboring community of Belleville, with 17 overdoses in a 24-hour period that overwhelmed all of the emergency services, including EMS, police, fire, and the emergency department at Quinte Health. In response to that state of emergency, local officials met with provincial ministers Tobolo and at the time Smith and Premier Ford. Minister Tobolo stated very clearly that there would be no investments made until a full plan was developed for the spectrum of addiction services. So that whole collaborative table got to work. And between that time and April of 2024, there was an extensive community engagement process that culminated in the development of a full system of care and a comprehensive funding proposal that was submitted to the government as requested by them. For those of you that may have attended the AMO conference, and I assume you had a contingent there, the province announced that they were shutting down 10 existing services and opening a new funding process, which was called the Heart Hub funding process. Today, the combined 180,000 residents within Hastings Prince Edward, including those in Prince Edward County, remain without access to essential addictions and mental health services. The government still has not responded to the proposal that was submitted, and we are entering a new cycle of the proposals submitted, the 15th proposal that will be unfunded, and a new proposal submitted through potentially the Heart Hub application process. We need to break that cycle for our region. In our consultations, people, including family members of people struggling with addictions, frontline workers, police, and the paramedics, talked about the cycle of addiction that are exhausting for all involved, with a repetition that feels very difficult to break because of an absolute lack of resources and essential services that people can be referred to. And I'm sure that your police are experiencing the same thing, where we're arresting, releasing, and arresting, overdose, emergency visit, overdose, and then drop off, pick up, drop off. That pattern continues because there is no infrastructure in our community to refer to. So police arrest a person, that person is released with no referral to any services because there is no services available that doesn't have a 600-person wait list. So our local CMHA is one of the only organizations providing addictions services, and they have a 600-person wait list. That person ultimately ends up arrested again because there is no help in between. Or paramedics are picking someone up who has overdosed. They're being taken to the emergency department. They're being treated. Because there are no detox beds in our hospitals and no services to refer to, that person is released and is in active withdrawal with no services or supports, and they overdosed again, sometimes in the parking lot of the hospital that they were just released from, because they're trying to self-medicate that pain through the withdrawal. Opioid mortality rates in Hastings, Prince Edward are 67% higher than Ottawa, Toronto, Hamilton, and North Bay. That is not a statistic that we want to own. The plan that was submitted to the government at their request is a locally made solution for our communities. In previous slides, we said there was an extensive community engagement in the development of our plan. There were over 100 frontline workers, family members, and patients were engaged. There were 49 key informant interviews with local leadership and clinical experts from across the province. We held 33 design and build sessions and 3 community roundtables where we co-created a continuum of services that works together to span screening, referrals, multiple pathways to treatment, and the shoring up of a workforce that is in crisis. Those engagement opportunities happened in Prince Edward County as well. We also consulted with many of the teams here in the county providing services, including the hospital. The continuum of service starts with helping people who use drugs to reduce risk and get to treatment. This will be enabled through outreach teams, the creation of the Bridge Integrated Care Hub that will act as a low barrier access point into care, and through the provision of integrated services. The next piece is to be sure people have access to appropriate addictions care regardless of how they enter the system. And it's important to note that while some of the population who will be served through this system are homeless, many are not and are struggling with addictions in their homes and workplaces. We need multi-site rapid access to addiction medicine, or RAM clinics. We need virtual access for those in our community who live rurally and remotely, as many do. We need urgent care and outpatient services at Quinte Health, and we need a specialized Indigenous addiction support team through our partners at Mohawks Bay of Quinte. And finally, we need a road to recovery with acute detox beds in our hospitals and supportive transitional beds in the community. In phase 2, we need residential treatment beds and community-based detox beds. And we need a full system of community care and support to ensure that people stay on track and maintain their recovery. This includes subsidized housing. And to enable all of that, we need a human resource plan that is linked to new training enabled by our partners at Loyalist College. The next 2 slides explain what that looks like. So there are 4 key innovations that are built into the plan that expand the window of intervention and address the link between homelessness and addiction. The first is to meet people where they are at. So a new partnership between the community paramedics and addictions counselors for mobile outreach. This pilot is having incredible success in diverting emergency department visits. The second is to include proactive screening of all hospital inpatients with treatment starts and referrals. The third is for paramedics to be able to offer treatment starts. And finally, stacking together housing supplements and outpatient treatment that blends RAM, so rapid access to addictions medicine, based addictions treatment program, and repurposed and aligned housing supplements. We recognize that we also need to address the rural nature of our region and the fragmented service system and the health and human resource challenge. So 4 other innovations were also included in the plan. The first is that Loyalist College will develop a train and stay program that develops the new health human resource contingent right here at home. With that, a treatment facility will also act as a training facility for that homegrown HHR strategy, or health human resource strategy. We want to be sure that we can track a person's journey through the system. So a 1-team addictions registry that connects all service providers so service can be managed. And finally, service navigators would be placed in all 4 emergency departments across our whole region. The timing of these deputations are important. For those of you, as I've already said, that attended the AMO conference, you know that the province announced the closing of many of the safe consumption sites across the province and are opening a new application process for communities to apply for service hubs that will replace those safe consumption sites. Hastings Prince Edward must stand apart from this process. We have been chronically underfunded for so long that there is a near total absence of services in our region. The region is doing our part to model an approach to whole community engagement and design. We are balancing priorities of community safety and safe care. We are raising funds to buy and renovate a building to become a hub of services. And we have repurposed funding to do outreach and emergency department diversion. We can't do more with what we have, and we need the province to fund the proposal that was submitted to them. So we are here to call on all municipal councillors and mayors to strongly encourage the funding of the proposal that was submitted as submitted. We have a letter that I've given to Mayor Ferguson that you can use for that purpose that names the historical underfunding of our region and the human cost of these gaps through deaths, overburdened healthcare, and first responder services. That's technically the end of the slideshow, but I just want to highlight. That we are different than other communities, and we will be competing through the Heart Hub application process. We will be competing for 8 communities that would be available through that process. We have no infrastructure for addictions medicine in our communities. We don't have a detox bed. We don't have a rehab bed. We don't have clinics. We don't have prescribers. We don't have virtual clinics. We literally have no infrastructure for addictions medicine. And we are going to compete against communities who have that infrastructure already. So our proposal is fairly high, but it's high in order to bring us up to a baseline of services that other communities across Ontario are experiencing. Hastings Prince Edward residents are underserviced in our region because we have been chronically underfunded. And our fear is if we enter that Heart Hub application process, we will not compete with the other communities across Ontario who will also be applying for those funds. So we're asking you to encourage Minister Jones to consider the application and the proposal as it's already been submitted. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation. It was very informative and very eye-opening. So I'll start looking for questions. I have first Councillor McNaught and then Councillor Pennell.
Thank you for this very upsetting presentation. I'm grateful for the innovation and the collaboration that's demonstrated in your approach. So thank you very much for that. I'm sorry that we're in this situation and was very concerned when the announcement was made that it wasn't nearly enough money, and the closure of the 10 locations where services were being offered in the larger cities were going to cause knock-on effects that might include a lot of deaths. And certainly in our region, it's pretty grim. So you're looking with the letter that you've provided to the mayor, are you looking for each one of us individually, additionally, to send it out as well as a council?
The way it's written is from the council.
From council.
From the council
Okay.
in general, but you're welcome to send them individually if you like.
Okay. And you did mention that you'd be willing to email the actual text so that we could
so you
work
can
with
cut and
that.
paste
If,
versus,
okay,
yeah.
because that would be really helpful to send personal emails as well
Sure.
to support this effort. Thank you very much for being here, for the work that you're doing, and for that additional offering. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I certainly agree with what you're trying to do. One of my greatest concerns, though, we keep talking about what time it takes and when they end up at the hospital and that. But having been in there during the night in an emergency, it's amazing. They're not only tying up some help, but sometimes it takes 3 or 4 people to keep them under control, and that's taken away from what they're trying to do. So anything that we can do to try to help them from not ending up in the hospital, it's going to be great for our health system as well. So thank you for what you're doing.
Councillor Maynard?
Thank you. Thank you, Brandy, for your presentation. And I look forward to supporting your letter and making sure that it also gets forwarded to other organizations in the county. We had attended yesterday our community safety wellbeing plan, where the mental health and problematic substance abuses were that was the topic really was on the addictions and the lack of well, the total lack of any, as you say, infrastructure to support in this area. So hopefully with enough voices, we can make a change. And thank you for filling the void until we have a government that deems it appropriate and necessary to support healthcare in our community.
Councillor Harrison?
For your very informative presentation. I have one question regarding this graph. Why was there such a tremendous decrease December, January from quite a high level down to normal or less, if there's such a statement as that, and then way back up again? Was there a reason for that?
I could hazard a guess, but this is Belleville General Hospital's information, so I would rather ask them and get back to you if that's okay. I would suspect that it is the toxicity of the drug supply. And that was happening in our community, is that there's a very toxic drug supply that has entered the community, which really precipitated the state of emergency call. So I would suspect it's that, but I don't know that. So I will get the answer back to you, if that's fair.
Yes, also asked the question if there was perhaps some sort of enforcement that took place in that particular time frame that may have dried the product up.
I don't believe so. The enforcement that has recently been implemented has only just started. And so that wouldn't have been active during that time. Are you talking about the arrests, right, for public consumption and those kinds of things? So that wasn't happening during that period of time. That's only just started to be enacted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks very much, Brandy, for this, for the presentation and importantly, your service to the community. This is a problem that is obviously getting worse. And, you know, I've had conversations with Neil Ellis about the situation that occurred in Belleville. So, you know, I'm fully supportive of this, and Madam Chair, when the time is right, I'd be pleased to make the motion to receive this, and I'd like to add a friendly amendment when the time's appropriate.
Well, I don't see any more comments from councils or from the committee, so let's put that motion.
Time is right.
Time's right.
Okay. I've got a
Okay, you got a
seconder.
seconder and Councillor
Councilor
Brinson?
Naughton.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Councillor Prinzen, okay. This is Ferguson Prinzen motion that the presentation by Brandy Hodge, Executive Director, United Way, Hastings and Prince Edward, regarding the community plan to provide integrated addiction care be received. And I'd like the friendly amendment to be, and my seconder is in agreement, and that a letter of support be provided to the province as soon as possible.
Sounds great.
Okay. You do, for the motion? Well, I expected nothing less. Go ahead.
It reads something like that the mayor send a letter to the Deputy Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Minister Jones, in support of an integrated system for addiction care in Belleville and Hastings Prince Edward. And that the letter be shared with Prince Edward County nonprofit organizations.
Okay. I'm okay with that. You okay? Okay.
The Premier.
And I guess our MPP, but maybe a little earlier than that. Anyway, we understand it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. I am going to call a vote. Oh, no, question on that, Councillor McNaught?
Yes, I'm just wondering if the letter refers to the, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to negatively phrase, but the inadequacy of the funds that are being dedicated to the province-wide.
It doesn't address the funds that are being committed through the Heart Hub, but it does address the historical
In it.
underfunding for the region.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's call a vote. As amended, all those in favor? Oh, friendly amendment, never mind. So let's call a vote on the motion. Yep, all those in favor? Yep, that carries
Thank you for
unanimously.
your support.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Brandy.
Okay, well, section 5, we have no deputations today, so we're going to move on to section 6, comments from the audience. We have no one in the audience today, so we're going to keep going on. And now we're into section 7, items for consideration. Can I have a mover to put 7.1 on the floor? Councillor McNaught, Mayor Ferguson.
Thank you. This is, sorry, was it Steve? Pardon me, Mayor Ferguson. So this is McNaught Ferguson motion that council receive report CAO-04-2024 and that council direct staff to defer work on the following items and bring to the next term of council for future consideration: the Millennium Trail, Salem Road, rest stop area, medical waste management exemption, possible pet cemetery, and long-term strategy to manage Pioneer Cemetery's water wastewater bylaw review, remaining bylaw and policy review, temporary worker housing for skilled trades at active development sites.
Excellent. And Madam CAO, you'd like to speak on it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So through the Chair to Council, I just wanted to make a few comments. So this is my standard report, quarterly report for the second quarter. Second quarter ended in June, but this is delayed. Much of July and August were preoccupied with other issues that jettisoned things from the agendas. So this was a bit of a casualty of that. What is different in this report is there's an additional attachment that is a list of outstanding council directed motions that came from a conversation we had in my last quarterly report about work that has been directed by council and the status of that work and transparency around that. So this is an attempt to respond to that question. I've taken the work that we have been directed by council to do and put it into what is planned for in an actual agenda forecast for 2024 and what it would then have to fall into some future meeting in 25 yet to be determined what quarter. So that's roughly how the appendix is set up. And then a list at the bottom, which is the recommendations that were just read out of projects that we're suggesting we not move forward. This is a difficult motion to bring forward, but I think we wanted to daylight that staff are engaged in a tremendous amount of work coming out of budget that is the actual work of service delivery in our community. And then at council, you see a very small subset of additional things that require specific additional policy or program direction from council. And so I'm not talking for the most part, council initiated initiatives, although there are some on this list, but just kind of recognizing that we've tried to call what we think are the priorities. We have a lot of cross-departmental work required related to asset management, financial accountability, public consultation and communication. There's just a lot on the docket, and we're trying to see if we're on the same page with council. We looked at it through the lens of those priority projects that need to move forward, but also things that are time sensitive or directly related to the strategic plan. And that's why these fall outside of that. So it's not to say these aren't good ideas, and we certainly would bring them forward to a future council. We are just trying to see if we're on the same page about where the priorities should lie, given that the 25 list is quite long already now, and we haven't even finished 24.
Okay, let's start questions. Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only concern is on C. I believe that we need a long-term strategy to manage our pioneer cemeteries, but I do not believe the county needs to get involved in pet cemeteries, as there's already lots of those in private. And I think that should be one thing just eliminated for staff to even have to bother with. And if it was appropriate, I don't know whether you would need a motion for that. If it is, I would be prepared to do that.
Okay, I'm seeing a nod from the clerk, but sorry, would you like to take over? Nope.
No, to the chair, I would just say, the reason they're listed as recommendations is for discussion here today. And I'm also happy to answer any questions about anything else in this report. But the idea would be is if you agree with these coming off the work list, then it stays as worded. If you want them to be kept on the work list, you have to remove them by motion.
Perfect for that clarification. We'll come back to any motions after a round of asking questions. Okay, so we have Councillor McNaught and then Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. So I'm not looking to remove this from the list, but I am just curious about the water wastewater bylaw review. Whether you as staff have any concerns about that, and if there are any risks currently that are faced in particular with sewer system discharges and private systems that are directly connected. And if you foresee, if it's currently, apparent that there are issues that cannot be managed by existing regulations.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
To the chair. You're the Madam Chair.
CAO, thank you.
To the chair, to Councillor McNaughton. So we wouldn't put anything on this list that we thought put the municipality at risk. In having conversations with staff who work in water, wastewater, the feeling is, so this is left over from the massive bylaw policy review that started last year. And we looked at absolutely every bylaw. So the bylaws listed in D and then E are bylaws that we're suggesting we not review and they be left in their current form. So we're saying the current form is sufficient. There are some elements of policy and bylaws, particularly as they relate to fees and charges, that we are recommending continue in the work plan because they are planned to come through the Water Wastewater Community Rates Committee and eventually help us with the rate study that we'll have to do. So the ones that relate to money, we left into the work plan, but these we don't think are given the amount of work in that space right now, they're not essential to do a full review at this time.
Thank you. And I did review the list of outstanding work to be done and did try to look at it with an eye of what could move and what would shift. But I presume we'll be seeing another report like this next year saying, here's another cluster potentially that we might need to shift off. So I thought it was great to have it assembled here for us to individually be able to review and regard and consider. Thank you.
Great, Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I guess this is more of a question than anything or looking for direction on. And that's the lot grading and drainage. It seems to me every planning meeting almost anymore that we are dealing, particularly on rural lots, with lot grading and drainage. Now, is the present policy, we get a land surveyor to look at it and okay it or not okay it. This seems to be one that's ongoing and comes up so frequently that I'm not sure we should be leaving that one any longer than we have to.
Through the chair to Councillor Harrison. So I can't speak to that policy. I'm not familiar enough to answer that question, but it was the recommendation of staff that this was the current policy was functioning, and therefore and given the resources it would require from planning and engineering, we could better use that time on different files that are also on the work plan. But that's why we're bringing this forward, to see if council agrees.
I guess that's a satisfactory answer for the moment. I just know it's an issue out there all the time, and at some point we do either have a policy or get away from having a policy, or something in between. I'm not sure, but I just know it comes up very often and is often an encumbrance for people trying to get a severance.
Okay, Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam CAO. I think you've outdone yourself this time. This is probably the longest, most detailed quarterly report yet. I always like to comment that, you know, that the public should really look at this. You even managed to sneak in some Q3 things since it was late, so very clever. And notably, you know, some of the recent issues like engaging in more visible project management, financial strategic planning, and communications on the water, wastewater infrastructure that has been an issue, and you know, we're dealing with that, and that's fantastic. I would just point out for the public, and of course, what I do every quarter when we get this, I'll put a link to this report directly in my daily email that goes out to over 400 households, is that there's so much in here that you never hear in the council chamber. There's all kinds, what we actually do here in this room is a small percentage of the work that the county actually undertakes. So if you look at the IT issues, the cloud backup system, and the fact that our electronic bid system and procurement is working really well. It looks like we're getting a lot more, you know, interest in our bids. That's stuff that the public really should see and realize that we are accomplishing lots of stuff other than the things that we deal with in this chamber. So I support all the motions without amendment, and great job. Thank you.
Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. I'm going to echo some of that, I really do want to thank you, Madam CAO, for bringing forward these detailed reports, and we will continue to try and get our constituents to read these so that they have an understanding of the complexity of the work that we do. And in this case, 177 matters that were addressed or completed, and on the and always looking for a little bit of good news at in the paragraph at the close of the second quarter. The municipality is in a stable financial position. There were no draws on the municipality's line of credit as the county remains in a strong cash position. And as of June 30th, 2024, the municipality had spent 40% of unadjusted of the overall budget. So we often around this table get caught up in the problems and the negativity, but this report, I think, really highlights the positive work and the positive direction that this municipality is going in.
Great, and Mayor Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think anything I wanted to say about the report has been mentioned by Councillor Hirsch and Maynard. They're always great, and I too want to remind the public that if you want an indication of the efforts that our CAO and our staff make, please read the report, because it provides a very fulsome summary of the activities of our CAO and her staff members. A couple of questions about this really short list. The Millennium Trail Road rest stop area, that is the area abutting the way station there. I'm just wondering what would, for the sake of the public, the development of that little area.
Yes, adjacent to County Road 33 and this was the original motion from Councillor Pecuniary.
Right, okay, all right. I'll ask this question, but I'm surprised this list is only 6 items instead of, and I'm sure that there are other things that could be added to it and might be added to it in the future, but I just want to, I suppose, get confirmation that what's been provided for 2024, balance of 2024 and 2025 should be a reminder to council of the outstanding work, and for council to recognize the amount of work ahead of staff before making a motion to add to it. Is that an appropriate comment to make?
Through the chair to Mayor Ferguson. I mean, yeah, there are other things that departments might wish could be added to this list, but the lens we took was if it was a direct request of council, we did not, and this council that was, we know that it had a specific time limit put on it and was strongly directional and related to our strategic plan. I mean, we have a pretty broad strategic plan with 5 pillars, so lots of things fits underneath it. So that was the lens we took. You know, if there's other things on this list in 2025 that you don't think are mission critical and can be pushed off, I would, you know, that could also be a motion and added to the list. But looking at it through the lens of the strategic plan, that's how we did it. And really trying to, a lot of what we have on the work plan here does relate to either things related to infrastructure or financing or asset management, which we really think need to be the focus for the next remaining part of this term of council. I always say, you know, we work for council and you set the priorities. I think what we're just trying to, this is the first time we've come here to say there needs to be some trade-offs. And I think this municipality is just in a really difficult spot right now. There is some very difficult asset management decisions we need to make, which every municipality needs to make because of the timeline set by the province. Plus we have the pressures of growth and everything else that the service demands. So this list doesn't even come close to representing the actual work list that we have. It's just the things that you've specifically directed through motion that we track through the clerk's office. And I guess I would ask you to consider that as you see new issues brought forward or you're talking to constituents. If we don't prioritize something, then we're prioritizing nothing. And from my perspective, infrastructure, asset management, finance, these are the things that really need to get done this term of council. And that has long tentacles and relates to a lot of different things, including community consultation and service delivery. And so it becomes a very large basket. So we're just asking to be mindful of that as we move forward. And it is much easier for us to do our job if we know we're working on the priorities that council has.
Okay, just if I could have a quick follow-up. Thanks very much for that. I think if there are other issues that arise where we have to revisit the list, or you want to, you know, make the list, update the list on a regular basis, then that, you know, in my mind would be an appropriate thing to do. But thanks very much.
Okay, any more comments before we go to Councillor Pennell? Are you looking to put your motion on the floor or another question or comment?
Yeah, I'm looking to put the motion on the floor.
Yeah, I think this is a good time for that.
Okay, can I?
Do you have a second?
My motion, if someone would second it,
Councillor Grasso?
would be to remove from 7.1C possible pet cemetery. That portion only. I want to leave the long-term strategy. As the CEO has said, we're coming into tough times this fall. And I find it hard to believe that you would find the majority of the residents in Prince Edward County want to start spending money on a pet cemetery, and as well wasting staff's time on that when it's so badly needed with all the projects we got going on. So that is the reason why I'm making it.
So through the chair to Councillor Pennell, the things on this list are the things we would not do.
Oh, would not?
Not do.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so your amendment, if you want to put back on the list, the long-term strategy to manage pioneer cemeteries, then that's the part you would strike to put it back on the work list. Because if you leave pet cemetery, then we're not doing it. This is the do not do. And I would just remind everybody that everything on this list, we are going to bring it back to the next term of council. So we're just saying not now, not ever.
I withdraw my motion then. I'm prepared to vote on.
Okay, then. So let's call this non-amended motion to a vote. I cannot remember who put it on the floor right now, but Councillor, it was Councillor. Yeah, okay, well, take it away and let's, yeah, it's already on the floor. So let's vote. All those in favor? Great, that carries. Let's move on. So we're going to go to 7.2, report of the Operational Services Department dated September 12th, 2024 regarding options for management of non-eligible recycling materials. Let's get this one on the floor. Councillor Engelsdorfer, Councillor McNaughton.
Thank you. It's a Engelsdorfer McNaughton motion that council receive report OP-10-2024. The council directs staff to establish non-eligible collection locations at each of the waste sites in Prince Edward County to improve recycling options for non-eligible sources and to procure private services to collect and market non-eligible recyclables from the waste sites. The council directs staff to extend the operating hours of the Wellington and Sophiasburg waste transfer sites by opening on Wednesdays. And the council directs staff to undertake an education program to inform the public of the upcoming changes to the recycling collection system and to renew the participation in the program.
Great, thank you for that. And we have staff here. I believe you might want to speak on this, Albert.
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, just a brief summary. I realize it's quite a wordy report, so my apologies for that. So I'm hoping I can summarize for you a little bit. Essentially, what's happening here is the province is changing the way recycling is done in Ontario. And they're moving away from a municipally funded model to a producer funded model. The intention here is that those who make the recyclable materials will pay for them, as opposed to it being a municipal responsibility. The legislation, however, has left out non-eligible sources. So we're talking about some commercial, industrial, we're talking about daycares and a few other things. And so essentially what we're here today to discuss, what this report discusses, is options for providing service to those non-eligible sources. To give you a flavor for the numbers, we have about 667 non-eligible sources that we've estimated here in the county. And that's not a firm number, it's an estimation based on the information we have. I believe it's probably a conservative number, as many of these would be already having their own sources of recycling management in place. Well, that 667 is of a total 1,100 different stops. And so it's a small fraction of the total amount of stops that are done on our current program. So it represents approximately 6%. To continue to provide the service that they already have would essentially be 40% of what we're paying. So it's 40% for the 6%, which is it's a difficult thing to manage. What we're presenting here is a middle ground. It's a middle ground that opens up the waste sites, provides opportunity for non-eligible sources to dispose of their waste, and not just on the weekends, but during the week, So they're not left, especially if you can't get your material there on the Saturdays, you have an option now on the Wednesdays. And it's a modest price, but still ends up generating a significant amount of savings to the municipality overall. So we're looking at, 890,000 approximately of savings off of the current 1.1 million levy. Yeah, that is my summary.
Excellent. And look at all the hands shoot up. Let's start with Councillor Hirsch, then Councillor McNaughton, then Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Albert, so just so we're really clear, so a restaurant, for example, that's non-eligible, right?
Correct.
Today we collect from them?
We collect from a subset within the business improvement areas and a few other locations. It's not consistent across the board.
So now this proposal would have them having to take their stuff to one of the landfill sites.
That's
or sadly, maybe just throw in the garbage.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. Yes. Now we're just to give a little bit of estimation for what we're talking about from a volume perspective. It's estimated to be about 140 tons out of the 2,400 tons that we generate.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McNaughton.
Thank you. I might look for just a little bit of latitude to build my understanding a little bit. So currently we're in this position. We're in sort of a good position on one hand because the province has created a program to require producers to pay, which is very strong for us. However, they're still not allowing us to piggyback the other locations per ride. Is that correct? So as the truck goes down the road, they can pick up residential, but they cannot pick up, for example, restaurant, even though they're driving right by. And even though we can sort of estimate the ratio of program in and program out material, correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor McNaughton, that is correct. They keep everything separate. So if we have to manage this ourselves, we're looking at using different trucks, different recycling facility.
So it has to be a full separate run. Okay. And we did do some advocacy along these lines to express to the province the position that it puts us in and how kind of silly it is a little bit. I'm just wondering, I suspect you would support any further advocacy to look to align the sort of two runs in one down the road if there's a potentially iterative process that the province might be still looking at this. I don't know if Quinte Waste Solutions has heard anything to that effect or not, but I'm hoping perhaps if we have opportunities at conferences over the next year that we can, sort of be pushing that message that rural municipalities and small urban municipalities, it really puts us in quite a bind. But I do want to thank you for what you've proposed here. I don't see an alternative until the program shifts a little to allow us to include that additional material and pay a sort of the balance. Have you heard anything? Is there any hope that you're aware of that this could alter?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor McNaughton, I have not heard of anything official. I, however, am participating in the municipal working groups that are out there and keeping our ears to the ground on all these things. If there are additional opportunities to advocacy in the future, certainly, we can bring that up and explore them.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in here too. The Quinte Waste Board hasn't really heard any new updates on that either, but the 9 member municipalities are all advocating. They're all going to send the same letter. I think 6 of them already have, so they are advocating for that as well.
Sorry, we're going to go with Councillor Pennell, Councillor Maynard, and I did catch you, Councillor St. Jean. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, my question is this opening these dumps on these 2 additional days is it strictly for recycling or for garbage?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Pennell, the idea would be that it's an additional day for 2 additional sites. So it'd be the Wednesday, and it would be for all wastes. With this, if the staff are already there, it only makes sense to also provide the waste service.
Quick follow-up. What would happen with, we'll say, in the Caring Place area, the Rossmore area? Would they have to drive all the way to Wellington or Sophiasburg to get rid of theirs when it's far cheaper than putting stuff in our dump for what a cost would be? Far cheaper to have a truck to Belleville than it is to use our own dump. I know I won't use it myself personally because the cost is higher. Is this the cheapest way of doing it?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Pennell, based on our estimations, it would be very expensive to have a truck run around and collect this material. As I mentioned, it's 40% of the current levy for 6% of the stops, so it'd be an increased amount of cost.
That wasn't my suggestion, have a truck. If these people are responsible for their garbage, is what I'm suggesting, would it be cheaper for them to go than to put it in our own dumps? Plus, it's filling up our dumps.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Pennell. So the material that we would receive wouldn't actually be deposited in our dumps. We would collect it and it would be sent off to be marketed as recyclables. Now, perhaps it would be cheaper for them to arrange something themselves. That's a possibility, but this would be in a measure to try and capture service for as many as possible for the largest part of the county as possible. So there may be some instances that it doesn't make sense, and it's possible that they are already handling their own recycling. I'm not familiar with that location specifically.
Okay, Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. And, I guess because we won't be having to, with this proposal, we won't be having 2 runs down the highway. I mean, at some point, hopefully the continued advocacy to the province to include commercial will gain some traction. That being said, I mean, the goal is, this is this was meant to be, this is a win for residential customers. So I support what you've put in front of us to have those facilities open to receive the commercial recycling products. But I'm just wondering, what will we review? And I may have missed, I did read the report, but is there a review period after like 2 years or something in that ballpark? Just before you answer that question, I just think having those waste facilities open through the week is also beneficial for people that work irregular hours. So there will be some benefit to residential taxpayers.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Maynard, there's no plan for a review built into this particular report specifically. But certainly, I think a review of these things after they've been implemented isn't a bad idea.
And does that, I think is that some, okay, go ahead. Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
through the
Just
chair
a
to
matter of
Councillor
course.
Maynard, I would maybe suggest an amendment to clause 3 so that we are being directed to extend the operation hours in those locations and report back to council in whatever timeframe you're suggesting, just because we're getting close to the end of the term. I think it would be wise to put it in so it doesn't get lost.
If I could ask then to the author, what might that reasonable term be? I'm sorry.
So if transition starts in July, this wouldn't start till July. So,
At least a year.
that's what I'm saying. We're likely talking about early in the next term of council. So Catalina, what would you recommend time-wise? Q2 2027?
That's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because we want to have enough data to make it meaningful, and we're not likely to have that before the end. I was thinking maybe right before the end of this term of council, but that's fine.
Yeah, and
that's absolutely.
Yeah,
fine,
and I think
understand.
that we'll have more data if it's into the first of the new council. But just talking with staff here, since we're amending it, perhaps we can make it clear that it's the opening on Wednesdays starting July 2025, so that people don't think it's happening next week. It's Thursday. Tomorrow's
And
Friday.
if the mover and seconder would, if those are friendly amendments, we can just. Yeah.
Madam
Just said the council.
or clerk, would that be considered a friendly amendment, just adding that? So I will ask for the motion later on when we're done the question period. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor St. Jean and then Councillor Princeton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think we all recognize. this
Councillor
is-
St. Jean, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Councillor St. Jean, it's not you, it's us. We're just figuring it out.
Okay.
That's right.
Councillor St. Jean, can you do some tests?
Test, test, test. I would sing for you, but that's not a good thing. Test.
Kind of.
Can you hear me now?
Hello.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I was saying, certainly this feels like a good report. I think it's a solution for a very terrible situation, particularly for our commercial areas right across the county. I do have a couple of questions, but I think I need to make this statement first. I think it's terrible that, well, on one side we're saving money. I get it, and I think most people know my position that, you know, garbage and recycling should pay for itself. However, in this case, we're looking at saving a lot of money on the backs of the people who employ a lot of people in our county, on the backs of businesses that have struggled immensely. I know I'm not saying anything that everyone around the table hasn't thought about, but it's the question I have is, given one of the two questions I have, given that most of our main streets, Picton, Bloomfield, Wellington, to a certain extent Rossmore, certain extent Ameliusburg, and certainly Caring, Consicon, it's mixed residential, mixed commercial. So I guess I have to ask Albert, how are we going to service the residents there separate from the commercial operations? Because in a lot of cases you have a residence in the back or above and a commercial in the front on the ground floor. This is really going to be so unwieldy and it's the expenses, additional expenses of on the businesses is going to be tremendous. Yes, we're opening up the dumps a little more often, but somebody has to take their recyclables to the dump, whether it's the business owner or an employee. So now they're paying somebody. This is just an absolute mess. So question number one, I guess, is how is this going to be separated? And I recall I said at an earlier meeting that if I was a business owner on Main Street, I would just put it out at home if I didn't live on Main Street. Like, how is this going to work, Albert? How are they going to separate residential from commercial when it is truly mixed in a lot of our urban and semi-urban corridors?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor St. Jean. That is a $1 million question. That is a very good question. I don't think the methodology has been released to the public. We certainly aren't aware of the mechanism that they're going to use to segregate both. I think it is a messy situation. I think it is going to be difficult, but ultimately this is a responsibility of the PROs and their contractors. And, you know, we will be removed from that mess, if you will.
Yeah, okay, and I think each and every one of us here around the council table are gonna have to be prepared, because very well prepared with answers, because we're all going to get phone calls from every commercial operator in this county. You know, I don't know what to tell people. This is absolutely terrible. You know, I support what we're trying to do. I absolutely want to see our costs reduced, and yes, we are increasing service to a point. But again, I can't stress it enough. We're putting all of this, the bad parts of this, on the backs of those in our community who have been struggling for several years and are still struggling. And I'm at a loss for words. So anyways, I guess the second question I have is, who should I tell them to call?
Their MP.
Their MP who's not, yeah, okay. Well, I guess we'll figure that out. It would be extremely helpful if we had some direction from staff as to who we can direct the public to, because I'll tell you, I don't have the answers. I don't think any of us have answers that will be satisfactory to any of our residents. And I'm certainly not looking forward to my next BIA meeting, where I know this is going to be a very hot topic. So anyways, I will be supporting the motion, but I certainly am disappointed, and I'm certainly not happy about where this is going. Thank you.
Yeah, CAO. And then Councillor Engelsdorfer.
Through the chair to Councillor St. Jean, to be very practical, if anybody is interested in pushing back on this, it is not, we can't control the legislative situation we're in, but this is the Minister of the Environment. So I know we don't have an MPP until the election, but we do still have a Minister of the Environment. So that if anybody has concerns about this, that's where I would direct the feedback.
Just quick follow-up, Madam Chair, to the CAO.
Can I just have Councillor Engelsdorfer just wanted to add on to your previous comment, and then we'll go back to you, Councillor.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that Quinny Waste decided to transition at the end for that reasons. And I know that the general manager right now is reaching out to other municipalities that have already transitioned to ask those questions. So he's going to be presenting those answers to the Quinny Waste Board. And when I have some of that information, I can probably share it with council at that time. But I think that was part of the reason that we chose July 2025, was so that we were at the end of the transition, so we could try and get some of the answers to those questions before we transition. So.
Okay, Councillor St. Jean, do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a simple request of staff to, if you could share with all of council those contact numbers for MECP, so that we can share that information, whether it's phone numbers, emails, whatever, so that when we do get those phone calls and those emails and those in-person discussions, I'll call them, that we can give the public and the business owners that information directly. And I hope they inundate the MECP with complaints and directions. I truly do, because this is just, it's not good. It's not good policy. It's not good practice. And it leaves an important sector of our community and our economy out in the cold. But anyways, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor St. Jean, yes, we can work together as staff and prepare something that can be circulated.
Okay, cool. Moving on to the end of round one, Councillor Princeton. Oh, and Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Albert. Can you just give us the logic of why Wellington and Safiasburg, when not most, but a lot of businesses are in Picton? I just look for the logic on that. Thanks.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Prinzen. So Picton's already open on Wednesdays and it has the ability to take that material. We chose Wellington and Sophiasburg because they're geographically spaced out, and Wellington being one of the, like, I would say the second busiest sites that we have. So something in the north, two in the busiest locations, and something sort of to target the whole geographic area.
And quick follow-up, can you remind me how many years ago we shut down the Wednesdays in the dumps? Because it wasn't that long ago, so I just for curiosity, I wondered. Thanks. I see the reason why we're reopening them, but I just wonder how long it's been since we haven't been open on Wednesdays.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Prinzen. I don't know the exact date, but we did do a trial period. I believe this was just before I started, so it would have been in 2020-ish, that realm. And we did a trial period for a part of the year, collected data on that. We didn't see any increases in quantity retained, so there really wasn't a drive to push it further.
Okay, Councillor Harrison.
Yes, to build on a bit on what Councillor St. Jean said, one of the questions that I can see coming first and foremost from our constituents is, why do I have a commercial or industrial levy and yet I'm going to be charged for this? That's about all I can say, because that will come, and I agree 100% with what Councillor St. Jean is saying, that this is going to be a nightmare.
Okay. Councillor Hirsch. Starting round two.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Albert, I'm just wondering, is this largely a small municipality rural problem and it doesn't affect the big cities? Like, what are they doing in Toronto and Ottawa, Hamilton and stuff?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Hurst. I'm unfamiliar with some of those locations. I know I've explored the City of Kingston, had conversations with staff there. Some of those locations don't provide service to their commercial or non-eligible folks. They have a smaller subset to deal with, so it's less of a problem for them. It's easier for them to say, "Oh, yeah, I'll handle that." For us, though, we've decided in the past to incorporate it all into the service. So I think we have a larger number than most, I'd say.
Right. Okay. Quick follow-up. So, because what people need to understand, and Councillor St. Jean is quite right, the same Coke can in a bag in front of my house gets picked up, and that same Coke can in front of a restaurant doesn't. It doesn't, and the producer is still responsible, or was responsible for it. It doesn't make sense.
But through the chair to Councillor Hirsch, I think the issue is that in the bigger places, that was privately contracted. So somebody was still picking up the Coke can. It just was a private, it wasn't the municipality. And in rural communities, municipalities have been taking on service that was too expensive for disparate businesses spread out or small numbers of businesses. So we were delivering more service than you would have gotten in a city. And now when this changes, that's why it hurts us more than it does a city, because we were delivering a larger amount of waste service than would have been delivered elsewhere.
Thank you. Yeah, I get that. But I mean, if the original concept the province came up with was if the producer is supposed to pay for collecting their packaging, it's the same package. And it's not working for arrangements like ours. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McNaughton.
Yes, I would concur. The exemptions are weird because packaging is packaging. Doesn't matter who the end user is. And I wanted to sort of agree with Councillor St. Jean. This really does create a problem for our business community. Absolutely. And I was wondering, as you're preparing communications, if you can include the ministry information on the press release as well as the communications that you and Councillor St. Jean discussed. I think it would be useful for the public to have that information, not just through councillors, but as part of the press release, if you're comfortable with that. And I just as a final note, want to point out, I agree with most of the comments that have been said, which is this is just poor policy, it's poor planning, even though fundamentally we are going to benefit and there is going to be a fiscal benefit here. It's just sort of bad planning to not include the entire programs. And I very much appreciate the work that you're doing to navigate this very difficult terrain with the best possible outcome that we can possibly manage at this time. And I do want to draw attention to the fact that the province has also made it very difficult. You've got the rise to the challenge of climate change as there's the strategic plan alignment. And it's like, you're doing your best to align with that plan, but we're actually taking a step backwards because we're putting a lot of cars on the road to deliver cardboard to land transfer sites. You know, it's a real shame that the province is putting us in a position to go against our own policies. So, but I appreciate your work trying to do your very best to make this function.
Councillor Grosso and then Councillor Pennell.
So running a place in Toronto for a lot of years, the way it worked was the city picked up recycling, all the cans and whatever else, and they picked up the organic, and there was no charge, but you could say the charge was added to your tax bill. And then as far as the other garbage, what most places did was just have a bin that came from GFL or whatever. If places are forced to pay for the recycling and the organic, you know what's going to happen is all that stuff goes in the bin, and it's going to be obviously really bad for the environment. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but that is, you know, primarily what will happen if the businesses have the space to put a private 4-yard bin on there, you know, that type of thing. So yeah, I think it just needs to be really looked at carefully.
Okay, Councillor Pennell.
I was just gonna say that we already have businesses within Prince Edward County right now that are paying to get rid of, through the bins, doing that. I have a neighbor that does that. The only way I think that we're ever gonna get companies to look at money for a plastic bottle, money for return on a can. If we just keep throwing out in general across the province and don't tackle it from the other end, there's no reason all these cans are going to recycling or bottles or anything else. And as long as you keep putting the money out there and saying, hey, nobody do anything, we'll just cover it, I don't think you're ever going to stop the problem. That's only my only thought on it, is we're faced with something we got no choice in to make a decision. It is not our decision base. We're being forced into it. Let's make the most of it. We can spend all afternoon and we're not going to solve the problem until governments hiring us look at it. How do we solve the problem? I go to a store now, I take all the packaging off, right in the store and leave it. You hope they pass it on to somebody else. That's the only way every one of us can do our. Well,
I'm just teasing
yeah,
you.
but I go to Canadian Tire and I leave.
On that note, I think this has been a hearty discussion and I don't think there's too many other people that want to comment on it. So let's.
I'm sorry. I know
Last one.
Yes, and very quickly. And I think in our messaging, what we do need to highlight is the projected savings to the taxpayers of Prince Edward County, which 2026, once it's fully transitioned, is well, right now just shy of $900,000 a year.
Okay, so the motion is on the floor. I'm going to call a vote. All those in favor? Oh, wait. before I get ahead of myself, we need an amendment. Do we have anybody that wanted to put the amendment on the floor? Councillor Princeton, Councillor McNaughton?
Who's my seconder, sorry? Thank you, Madam Chair. Prince and McNaughton motion that recommendation 3 in report OP-10-2024 be amended to read as follows. That council directs staff to extend the operating hours of the Wellington and Sapphires-Berg waste transfer sites by opening on Wednesdays as the transition begins approximately July of 2025 and report back in Q2 of 2027.
Fantastic. All those in favor of the amendment? Excellent. And now the main motion as amended. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you, Albert, for that. Okay, let's go on to 7.3. Reappointment of a councillor to the Water and Waste Rates Community Committee. So we have two options in front of us as the agenda states. I think the clearest way to move forward is that we start with option 1, which is that we accept the resignation of Councillor Pennell with regret. And then we go into taking nominations. If nobody wants to step forward, then we'll move into option 2. So does anybody want to put 7.3 option 1 on the floor? Councillor Pennell and the seconder, Councillor Grasso.
There you go, buddy. I did it for you. Nobody wants to miss this.
Can I make the nomination now? Okay.
Can you please read the motion and then make the
Oh, okay.
nomination?
That the reappoint of councillor to the Water and Wastewater Rates Community Committee, and we follow option 1 with the resignation, and that Councillor Maynard be appointed to the Water and Wastewater Rates Community.
I'll move to close now.
Great, so I believe, Clerk, we are moving into nominations. So we have our first, would you like to take it from here then? No, I mean, I don't mind. No, I'll throw this election. Okay, let's rock and roll. Councillor Maynard, you got a nomination. How do you feel about that?
I will accept the nomination and thank my nominator.
Fantastic. Does anybody else have a nomination? Oh, Councillor Princeton.
No nomination, Madam Chair. I would just like to move the nominations closed.
Okay, let's go for it. Oh, we got a seconder. Okay, she's closed. So we don't have to vote because we only have one. So Councillor Maynard, congratulations. You win.
Thank you.
And now we don't need option 2. So let's vote on the main motion as option 1. All those in favor? It's too late. The price is right.
Yeah. That was the thing.
And now we're moving on to 7.4, verbal update from Mayor Ferguson regarding the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus advocating for the regional priorities at the Association of Municipalities Ontario AMO 2024 conference. Take it away, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody has the package that was provided from the EOWC as part of the today's agenda package. So I'll just provide a brief summary update to fill in any gaps, and then if there are any questions, I'd be pleased to answer. But the EOWC had a pretty significant presence at AMO 2024. For the sake of the public, the EOWC, or Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, is comprised of the 13 municipalities of Eastern Ontario, say geographically from Peterborough to the Quebec border. At this particular AMO conference, we had a record number of meetings with federal, provincial, and sector partners, but the way in which the OWC approached the meetings was different than it has been in the past. Usually it was all members would attend all delegations, and it became a little bit unwieldy for both members of the organization to adjust schedules for their own delegations. It was also difficult for the government provincial government ministries to attend these large gatherings. So they were broken down into smaller groups. And I participated in one delegation with Minister Kinga Surma concerning infrastructure. The EOWC spoke at all its delegations of its strategic plan for our small urban and rural communities. And those priorities, not unsurprisingly, include infrastructure, housing, and healthcare. And that's what was discussed in these delegations. The Mind the Gap document, the Regional Municipal Infrastructure Policy paper, which was presented and has been distributed to council earlier in the summer, covers the reality of the infrastructure deficits across all our municipalities, and how it also highlights how Eastern Ontario is a growing economy. Some of the key points are that we have $6 billion in municipal infrastructure deficit, which has increased by close to 60% since 2011. We don't have, also contained in that report, is we don't have the same financial tools in small rural communities to pay for infrastructure, and need federal and provincial government help to understand our rural realities and to partner with us to address those concerns, whether it's roads, bridges, water treatment plants, and arenas, all of which are a priority. So I was pleased to find in the paper that across the region we are building housing, and this was highlighted to Minister Surma, who wasn't aware that we were building housing at a faster rate per capita than the city of Toronto. And the EOWC's communities are building 39 units, and Toronto is building 17 units per 100,000 population. We, apart from the delegations, we had a joint meeting with the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus and the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, which collectively represent 230 municipalities of the 444 across the province. And we presented a united front around our support for the Solve the Crisis campaign that the Ontario Big City Mayors Group is leading to bring attention to the homelessness and mental health crisis taking a toll in communities of all sizes, as we heard earlier. So we're stepping up on the trying to join the front lines here, but provincial coordination and leadership is certainly needed. And the EOWC is going to continue to work in that regard. We, EOWC, send a joint letter to Premier Ford and the Ontario government to ask them to come to the table around modernizing the municipal fiscal framework. And this is something we've talked about here as well. Municipalities are faced with delivering more services and maintaining assets without a way to sustainably pay for them In Ontario, we're the only province where municipalities are mandated to deliver housing and long-term care. And AMO is leading this call in action for a social and economic prosperity review, and the EOWC is fully in support. Some other highlights include a meeting with Sean Fraser, Canada's Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, to talk about the Mind the Gap paper, and that was attended by our CAO, who was asked to participate. We were also pleased to meet with Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Kinga Surma, as I mentioned, Lisa Thompson, the Minister of Rural Affairs, and Natalia Kusendova-Bashta, the Minister of Long-Term Care, with whom we had an earlier county-specific delegation concerning the HAM rebuild and the financing of that. The EOWC further established a new partnership with the OMA, Ontario Medical Association, around our common priority of needing support with getting healthcare staff and family doctors in smaller communities. And more information about that is, I'm sure, to follow. There were also successful meetings with the Ontario NDP and the Liberal parties, but I didn't attend either of those. So we're obviously, the EOWC was pleased to see the investments made from the Ontario government around infrastructure. And we certainly look forward to continued discussion, both as a municipality and as part of the EOWC. And certainly Tuesday's announcement from the province was very welcome. So the materials are all provided. The recap is provided in this package. There's additional advocacy material that's available on the EOW website that I think was circulated at an earlier date. So that's basically a recap of what happened at AMO, but happy to answer any questions.
Councillor McNaughton?
No question, but a thank you for the concerted effort that the EOWC is making. And the priorities are huge, and the only way forward, I think homelessness and the mental health crises are problems that are truly solvable with coordinated efforts like that. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Maynard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At AMO, in informal conversations with councillors, mayors, heads of council, and staff from Eastern Ontario, Warden from that area, it was a very positive tone and very hopeful that this project was actually going to make it some difference, and we're really impressed by the paper that was put forward. So that was just, kind of an informal, but there was really a good vibe and some good hype about what we can do in Eastern Ontario.
Yeah, let me add that I think it's fair to say, and I think the CAO would agree with this, that the stature of Eastern Ontario is ascending in terms of the recognition it's getting from upper levels of government. That was certainly indicated in the meeting, and certainly something you could sense at the conference. So anyway, the next meeting's in October, and I'll report following that.
We look forward to that. And I see no other hands up, so I'm going to then call a vote to we're going to actually put a motion on the floor. Just wait. Can I have here, I'm going to read the motion out, and if I can have a mover and seconder for that would be great. So the motion is that the verbal update from Mayor Ferguson regarding the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus advocating for regional priorities at the Association of Municipalities be received. Councillor Maynard, Councillor Pennell, sounds great. All in favor? Awesome. I'm going to hand the honorary reins of this motion to Councillor Prinzen in a secondary. Councillor McNaught and Councillor Prince, take us away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a Prince and McNaughton motion that this meeting now adjourn at 3:14 PM.
All in favor? And thank you. And thank you for everyone that tuned in
Will be.
or that will be tuning in. Enjoy.